and jump right into it. Hello and welcome. My name is Katie. I am with ProNotary, a remote online notarization software that we are currently doing a promotion where we will give you the first month as a free trial. This is as of right now, January 30th. So feel free to go ahead and get signed up. The premise of that is so you are comfortable with using the platform. And so the first month is entirely free. That is included with the membership. Yeah, let me change this. Included with the membership, and then also the any of the transaction fees. So if you're worried about getting to know the ropes and figuring out how to use a remote online notarization platform, this is a really, really good thing for either newbies or someone that wants to switch over to a different platform. Feel free to use the code first-month-free. Okay, so we are going to jump right into it. We have about half an hour of a training. And so what I wanted to talk about is one of my favorite subjects, which is international notarization. So when I was first starting out, one of the things that I learned while I was in training as a remote online notary in the state of Florida is that the signers can be anywhere, and then you just have to be within your commission state. Now, there's always the caveat that because I'm talking to a wide variety of different types of notaries in different states, that I would ideally like you to look up that information yourself. To self-verify, because you are in charge of your own commission and your own guidelines. So just make sure that you are checking. But in general, you can notarize for signers regardless of where they are, as long as you are within your commission state. That opens a lot of doors for notarizations and marketing. So I wanted to highlight that of how you can market yourself to these different title companies, law firms, anyone that deals with our industry of notarizations by highlighting that. So I think international notarizations gives us a huge leg up over mobile notaries because they are limited to only being within their own proximity. So, like proximity is not a thing for me or you, where you are doing remote online notarizations. I can help someone that is in India, I can help someone that is in Alaska, and I can help someone that is next door. So that is definitely something that you can start making content or making material. And then when you are out going to these clients, make sure that you are highlighting that, because it's an easy way for you to get your foot in the door and become their go-to remote online notary. So one of the things that you want to think about when you are doing international notarizations is time zones. When you are talking to your clients, however you are talking to your clients, you want to make sure that you're doing the same time zone, because otherwise, what will end up happening is like, okay, yeah, let's do this at 2 o'clock. Your 2 o'clock rolls around, it's their 4 o'clock, and so they're completely off track. You want to make sure that you are very clear, like when you are talking to them, like I am talking about Eastern Standard Time. Are you in Central Standard Time? Are you in, Mumbai? There's a lot of room for miscommunication, especially if you're working with clients that are in different areas. I use ChatGPT all the time. I don't like doing time conversions in my head. So I just say, hey, I'm in Eastern Standard Time. I'm trying to schedule something with someone that is in Brisbane for this time zone. She suggested 2 o'clock her time. What time is that for me? So it's just a little bit of an easier way for everything to be clear when we are going forward with these notarizations. So when you're scheduling these clients, make sure that you keep that in mind. The other thing that you want to also make sure that they have is a social security number. So it is a little bit of an interesting conversation if you are first starting out. When you are talking with, like, let's say the title companies or the law firms to ask if they've had social security numbers. And a very common term that you will hear is they're foreign nationals. So that is something that it's important for you to ask if they have a social security number or not, because for the ID verification, when they go through, so for a remote online notarization, the signers have to go through ID verification prior to being able to get things notarized, unless the notary personally knows them. They have to. So the way that they do that is they provide their social security number to the software. The software then pulls some of that information from publicly available sources, and then uses that to create questions for your clients. So it's a anti-fraud measure for the signers and then for the title companies, everything like that. But if you don't have a social security number, there's nothing that they can use to pull. So it's not always likely for them to pass. So that is something else to think about when you are working with international notarizations, is that it's very common. Like, do not feel, I mean, obviously deliver it in a way that is polite, but do not feel funny about asking if they have a social security number if they are overseas. That's a very common question. Your title companies are going to most likely expect that. They might not have an answer right away, and then they will have to get back with you. So if you are in a state that does not have biometrics, so biometrics is and this is always something that you have to really look at your state guidelines at. For title companies especially, they are not always pleased, or like they will not always allow you to use biometrics. So make sure that you are having pretty good conversations with your title companies about what that would look like for international notarizations. If they do not have social security numbers, a different way around that is through biometrics. So biometrics is only available to notaries in some specific states. We're not going to get into that with this webinar. But just make sure that you are letting them know that if you have that type of issue, if they don't have a social security number, that you're going to have to take different types of measures. You can always, if you are in a state, if you are a notary that is within a state that does not allow biometrics, I would highly encourage you to start collaborating with other notaries that do have biometrics available, just because sometimes those cases do come through. And it's always nice to be proactive instead of reactive, where you're trying to find someone that can do biometrics, remote online notarization on the fly. And that's never a good feeling. So international notarizations, that is basically what you are going to ask. The other thing that I wanted to highlight especially is that we have a ton of resources on our YouTube about immigration lawyers and immigration translation. So like translating documents, but then also translating the actual notarization itself. Sometimes if you have clients that English is not their native language, and then you might not necessarily speak their native language, there are things that you have to ask as a notary for the script to go through. And so sometimes you would need to have a third party come in and just facilitate that type of transaction. So just kind of, I think that it would be a good idea to reach out to, we like Idiomatic as a translation service, but you can use whichever your state guidelines allow to help facilitate with those types of transactions. So I've had transactions, or we have notaries that have signers that speak different languages that do not speak the language of the notary, and then they will have to use a third-party translation service in order to facilitate, because like I'll give you an example. When you are doing the notarization, there's certain questions that I have to ask as a Florida notary, and it's like, are you doing this of your own free will? Do you understand the contents? Everything like that. And so I have to be confident that that person understands both what I'm saying and the contents of the document. It's a general rule of thumb, just kind of common sense, that you want to have it be a third party, because I have had people that are saying that they're family members, or related in some way, or a trusted family friend, say that they are translating what I'm saying accurately. And if you don't know that other language, you don't know that that's what they're saying. So you just want to cover all of your bases and remain unbiased, and then also ethical. So that is something you also want to think about if you are working with immigration or like foreign internationals, people that are in different countries, that they are going to be comfortable with your, you know, conducting the notarization in the language that you speak. So that is always something to think about when you are doing them. They are not scary. For the most part, I really, really enjoy remote online notarizations when they are foreign internationals or international notarizations. One of the other things that I think is very appealing for a lot of people is the different time zones. So I know that I touched on it earlier, but if you are able to get into a community that primarily works on an opposite time schedule, it's nice if you need that because you're working like a regular job during the day, or you're watching your kids during the day or something like that, because that's what a lot of parents that I know do, where they are working during the day, and then they want to be able to take care of their kids during the evening, and then they log on to, ProNotary at night, and then are working with their direct clients for international notarizations. Like, when I first started, I had a pretty good base in Malaysia. And so then that was like the 3 o'clock time was like a good time for them to be able to do notarization. So that is something that you can also delve into. For that, yeah, we have time. For that, this is just from personal experience, but for that, when I was running ads over in other countries, it didn't really make a lot of sense for me financially to do that, because although I did get some work in, it was not consistent. The signers were brand new to the entire process, and so I would then have to explain the process over and over and over again. Now, looking back, I would have went directly to the source of wherever those documents were coming from. So for the majority of the cases, it was for a group that was essentially importing or like immigrating English speaking people into different countries to be able to teach their children English. So there's like different companies that do that, but they did need a good amount of notarizations for when they are bringing people over and then also sending them back to their home countries. If I would have just thought about that, I would have just gone directly to that company that kept sending out the notarizations. But that is where you will get most of your business, is by, like, if you have a lead source that is a general notary work from like a random person, I would find out why they need that notarized. And if there's like a issuing office, just reach out to that issuing office directly, and say, hey, I just notarized a document for one of your clients. I just wanted to introduce myself and let you know that going forward, if you'd like, I would love the business. And then everything will get done really, really quickly. We can develop some sort of relationship, and then I can send the documents directly back to you as long as the signers agree. So that's always something that you can do when you are working with international clients, like go directly to the source. And that's the same with US based businesses that work a lot with that work a lot with foreign internationals. So that is my overview of international notarizations. And then obviously you would pair it with ProNotary. So we are the remote online notarization software. For the most part, what I've noticed is that even while I am out marketing, people still think that everything is done through Zoom. That's obviously not the case. You need a specific software that is approved by your state to be able to perform these notarizations. And so that's obviously where ProNotary comes in. So we provide the software needed for the actual process. So if anyone is ever stumbling on words on how to describe what remote online notarization is, I always tell them that it is a combination of Zoom and DocuSign combined on a secure platform where the signers will upload their IDs so that way they verify their identity, answer a couple questions, meet with a friendly notary, and then get their document notarized. So that is the elevator pitch of what it is that we do, and then obviously partnered with ProNotary. So I wanted to also highlight again our processes. We have a lot of different features that I think are very helpful in general, but since we were talking about immigration and international notarization, we do have an automatic sign-on link where once you send out the invitation or once you make the invitation as the notary, you can copy the link and send it directly to your signers. They can click through it, upload their ID, and then meet with you remotely. So we have two different options. They can either do their ID verification prior to meeting you, or they can hit skip and then you can walk them through it together. So that is something that sets us apart. The other thing that I always want to highlight. Oh, actually, this is new. Okay, so first we're going to talk about what I want to highlight. Then we're going to talk about something that's new that just rolled out and I'm excited about. So one of the things that we have is mid-session features. So let's say you forget a document or your witness can't show up and you need to switch them out. We have mid-session options, so that way you can do things on the fly. We are aware that not everything goes to plan for everybody's schedules during these notarizations. So we give you the options to be able to make last minute changes, even mid-session, and not have to send out an entirely new session. So if you have a 52-page, will that you have already pre-tagged, and for whatever reason your witness is not able to make it, instead of doing that whole entire thing where you have to pre-tag, you have to send out the new notarization invitations, you have to do everything, you can just go ahead and simply get rid of your first witness, put in whatever witness you want instead, and then carry on with your day. So that is something that is important to consider when you are looking at remote online notarization softwares. And then also if you are already a client and you didn't know that, now you do. And then also we are rolling out, it's live, but I need to put it so that way anyone can basically get it, our training program. So that is A to Z, how to explain remote online notarization to your signers so that way they'll actually want to do it. How to get signed up with the platform, how to get your profile set up after you have been onto the platform, and then just all of the different functions that we have. That way you can just refer to it and then go through it. So that is all of what I wanted to go over. And also if you are on the fence or if you are in if you are in a state that does not allow you to become a part of ProNotary because Ron isn't available, we have a partner program as well. So we are giving incentives and referrals to anyone that refers us. We obviously want to thank you. So if you sign up it's under pronotary.com/partners. we're giving you $50 for the first, like after you sign up, and then just after that, it's $50 per person that signs up under your code. And then just stays there, I think, for 3 months, just so that way, it just makes sense and it's fair for everybody. But yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and I think make it so that everybody can talk if they would like. And if you have any questions, it is 12:22, so we have like about 10 minutes. So I want to open the floor up in case anyone wants to talk. So I'm just gonna drink my Red Bull. So you might have to unmute yourselves to be able to talk to me though. So
Hello.
hi,
Hi, Katie.
how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good.
I just had a question more like with the remote online notary. I've done a few loan signings where the documents were done online, everything was done online, but they
Mhm.
still needed their wet signatures. Is that depending on the state? Is that more common? Is it harder to
Did
get raw documents submitted? I don't know.
did they say why they needed it to be a wet signature?
No, they never say why. I've already done three and they just said they needed a wet signature. I'm assuming from the States. I didn't look it up though.
So for the most part, if you are talking with someone that needs a wet signature, sometimes there's no like things in place that say that they need to, and sometimes they just want it because that's what they're familiar with. But for loan documents especially, if it's attached to a mortgage, that's more common for them to only want wet signatures. Um, Mortgages are also tied to underwriters that have very specific things on what is and is not allowed to happen for these notarizations or for these entire, like the whole entire thing. So the underwriters and the lenders are essentially able to dictate what happens. Historically, they don't really look kindly upon remote online notarization. We're very much trying to get that kind of more acceptable. But that is probably what you're running into. Um, for that, you're gonna have to stick with wet signatures until they kind of ease up on those types of things. Um, Our notaries typically see things that are either all cash deals, which don't have to deal with a mortgage or an underwriter, and then that's fine. So all cash deals or sellers packages. So sellers packages are the people that are selling the notars, selling the houses. They don't typically need anything notarized on the lender or the mortgage side. Excuse me. So then title will just send it over to a remote online notary and then usually get it knocked out. Those ones are typically anywhere between, I've had it where it's like 7 pages, but otherwise typically it's 20 to like 40 pages that you would just need to pre-tag and then send out to the signers. Sometimes you need a witness attached as well. So it just depends on the state. And then sometimes you do not. So yeah, mortgages, we're still trying to get them, but for the most part, if you're doing RON fairly regularly, I would just focus on the seller side packages, investors, and then just cash deals or trailing documents. Sometimes they let you have trailing documents. There are certain underwriters that are fine with remote online notarization, so it just is dependent on the title company that you are working with, if you are going to be dealing with that or not.
Thank you.
Did that did that make sense?
Yeah, I just
Okay.
wanted, I guess, I kind of thought that I just wanted it to be like reinforced in my mind, I guess.
Yeah. Um, I still run into it where they're like, no, they said that they need it to be a wet signature. And I'm like, why? Why? It does not happen as much in the legal field and in construction. So I think this is just my own opinion. I think that it's because there's so much fraud for real estate, and that's especially with the wire transfers, that everybody looks at any new, I know it's been around for so long, but any new type of technology with a very jaded eye, and they are not, they're trying to do everything so that way they don't open themselves up to any type of fraud, which does make sense because like our jobs as notaries is to educate them that there's so many things in place that prevent fraud in remote online notarization instead of just, having the notary in front of that person with an ID. You have the notary in front of, essentially in front of the person with the ID, but then also, the checks and systems in the background that also have to go through. But that's still an education process for our industry on what actually happens during remote online notarizations. So that's the general attitude that I get while I'm marketing or just going out for people that might not necessarily or have never gone through a notarization remotely.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. You mentioned in the training there was a way to explain it to your customers because when I try to explain it, I feel like I confuse them more.
Do a very high level, easy. Zoom, DocuSign combined. That's all I say. It's like if that's they don't care about the inside parts of it. They just want to know that they can actually do it. So if they're like, I don't know, if it's a general notary work person that's calling, like from your Google My Business, and they're like, hey, I need a child form notarized. If I say, oh yeah, I can do it remotely, they're like, oh, that's not, I don't know how to do that, whatever. That's the general kind of reply that I get. I usually will just say, it's Zoom and DocuSign. I can send you over the invitation. If you can't figure it out, then I'll go to your house anyway. I don't do in person, like I don't do in-person notarizations anymore. But that is a way that you can pitch it to them, or that is a way that you can get them converted because it takes off the pressure of being able to figure it out. Because like after I talked to people after they've gone through the whole process, they're like, "Oh, I didn't want to because I didn't think that I could do it." It's like that's okay. I walk people through that all the time. It's no big deal. So yeah, I would just do a very high level. It's a Zoom DocuSign combined because that's what most people know. Like especially after COVID, they know what Zoom is. They usually know what DocuSign is. It's just combined where I watch you sign something where we don't have to leave anywhere. Um, so just try that and then let me know if that works. Or if you feel comfortable saying that, or if you find anything else that works a little bit better, let me know too. But that's kind of, and it doesn't always convert everybody, but it does help.
Yeah, that's where I'm at, trying to find work.
Yeah.
But I just had a quick question,
Mhm.
and I don't know, it's something I should know or why it's confusing to me. I see a lot of, when you're in notary groups or whatever, you see them, oh, I just, had a run with people that are in Mexico or they're in another country and they're doing their notarization. And I know you can do notarization as long as you're in your state, but how does that work as far as the KBA? Yeah, are we allowed
Yeah.
to do that?
Yeah. So the document itself, okay, that is a good question. That's not something that like it's that's not anything. You can always ask any questions. So for that, if they are in Mexico, let's just say that they're in Mexico on vacation, and they are buying a house in Alabama. So basically, the way that we can do that is that the documents themselves have to deal with the United States, but the signers can be anywhere. So if the signers were in Portugal, but they were, and this has happened, where they're buying a house in Portugal, they need something notarized for that was going to be recorded in Portugal, that is not something that we can do. They're not going to be recognized. We cannot notarize for them that's the same as if there was someone in a different country trying to get documents notarized by that different country's notary, that wouldn't be recognized. The only way that they would get around that is if they were to go to an embassy or consulate and use a US based notary at that point. So that's the only caveat that they have. Otherwise, they would either have to come back to the United States or use a remote online notary. Yeah, so the document has to pertain to the United States, but they can be anywhere. That does not matter. And that's usually, you'll be able to find that in the guidelines for remote online notarization. Usually each state has that pretty clearly outlined for what we can and cannot do.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I guess when I thought about it, I was like, they're not from here. How can they do it? But I didn't think of it as far as people traveling out of,
Yeah.
they needed
Well,
something.
yeah. So, but even if they're not from here, so let's say they were. This has happened. Okay, I'll give you a concrete example. I had a person that was selling their yacht from Australia. And then it was a United States person that was buying it. So they needed to register it within the United States. The person in Australia was not going to either go to an embassy or go to, the United States just to sell their boat. So what ended up happening is that seller, or I'm sorry, that buyer put them in touch with a remote online notary to be able to do that. Now, that Australian person did not have a social security number. So they did have to go through some extra steps as far as biometrics. But otherwise they were still able to get that document notarized, because even though they are not United States citizens, they can still go through the identity verification and get everything set up with a passport. So that was the way around it. Yeah, but that does happen where, even people that aren't United States citizens still need to get things notarized for United States documents. So,
Oh, okay. Thank
yeah.
you for explaining that because it's still, it's still new to me. And I guess because I haven't really done a lot of run or any, I'm still in what is it, instead of
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, I know what it is. I experienced that.
Yeah, and that's super normal. And thank you for asking those questions, because even my first my first notarization as a remote online notary was for a foreign national loan signing, and that was like terrifying. And I could not. It took a while for me to be able to see or like find the guidelines that said that I could do that. So yeah, no, that is super common, and thank you for asking that question. But I'm going to go ahead and end this because our time is up, but I did want to reiterate that when you do sign up for ProNotary, at least as of right now, so just like go and sign up today if you can. We're doing the first month free. So I think we should have the code valid on there already when you do sign up, but it's just first dash month dash free. So that is for if you're on the fence and you're worried that, you won't be able to figure it out. We give you an entire month where we're not charging you the subscription fee, and we're also not charging you the transaction fee. And so that is so you will go onto the platform, learn how it works. You can do some notarizations. We want that relationship with you. So that is why we are waiving that. If you have any questions, you can always email me at katie@pronotary.com. But otherwise, thank you for your time and have a great rest of your day.
Thank
Thank you.
you.